Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner AFRY. AFRY is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. Hej och varmt välkommen Clair till Urbanistica podcast.
Tack.
Hur mår du?
Bra, tack. Och du?
Jag mår jättebra. Kul att se dig här.
Tack detsamma.
Okej, är du redo?
Ja.
Awesome. So let's just give our English listeners what did we...
Oh man. Yeah. For my parents back home.
Yeah.
I'm learning Swedish.
What did you say now?
We said, hey and welcome to Urbanistica podcast. And I said, thanks. And of course, how are you? Good, thanks. And you?
Nice.
Are you ready? Let's go.
So, are you ready?
Yes.
Yes, Claire, I'm so happy to see you here one more time in Urbanistica podcast. So really welcome back to the podcast studio.
Thank you so much. It's cool to be here.
Yes. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well.
Let's just basically start. You were a great guest in the previous episode. We talked about you moving from USA to Stockholm, to Sweden, Stockholm, how you experienced your first 4 months, was it?
Yeah. Well, it was in November. So first
3
or so. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do a follow-up episode, and we will do even the one more after the summer. So, and give the listeners a highlight about you. Who are you? How would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Claire. I'm from Michigan, USA. I am almost completed with my first year. I've almost completed my first year of master's studies in Sweden. I'm studying urban planning and design, and I'm doing this podcast with Urbanistica as just a student episode to follow the life of a student in Sweden from beginning, middle, and end. And yeah, it's also a really amazing personal diary of sorts because I'm learning that I'm learning, which is cool through this process.
Yeah, that's amazing. Give us a highlight about what are you studying now, which year? You mentioned you're almost done with the first year of your master.
Yep, so I'm almost done with the first year of my master's. I'm studying sustainable urban planning and design. I live here in Stockholm. I'm at KTH University. So, yeah.
So last time we talked, I think we recorded the episode in November, was it?
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about the winter, the making friendship with the Swedes and many interesting stuff. So how was the winter? I see you survived the winter here in Stockholm.
Yeah, no problem. The winter here was darker than I'm used to, for sure. Definitely relied on a lot of 2 p.m., 3 p.m. fika, in the schedule. So getting coffee or maybe a little sweet mid-afternoon, because when the sun sets at that time, you feel extra droopy. So, there was the darkness, there was the cold, which wasn't actually new for me. Being from Michigan, I am really used to a cold winter. But we also had a good bit of snow, so that was beautiful. And I think it was a snowier winter than average for Stockholm. But yeah, I think what really saved me was having a really great friend group to do dinners with, and having the amenities on campus to be able to still, walk only 2 minutes to the study building. That for sure helped a lot. Yeah. But also I was able to make some small trips within Sweden. So we got to enjoy a little bit of skiing and snowboarding. Wow. And we went up to the Arctic Circle. So winter for me here was wonderful. Some of my friends who were from Argentina or Portugal or whatever had definitely more of a shock, but yeah, on the whole, it was amazing.
Yeah. So how was your when the sun was setting around 2 p.m.? How was your reaction in the beginning, first week?
It was definitely strange. I have always sort of loathed the darkness of winter, even, back home, because it makes me less adventurous. I feel like I want to just stay inside and be warm. So when it was setting really early, I just sort of embraced it as like the new normal, and everything was still up and running. I mean, the lights would come on the trails. The city is still alive. People are still cycling. The city doesn't stop. They're very used to that. So I kind of embraced that attitude and rolled with it.
Did you had any chance to take part of winter activities here in Stockholm, or it was COVID, like everything was locked down?
Yeah, a lot of the traditional things here weren't happening, so I didn't end up experiencing them, but I'll be here another year. Maybe next year I'll be able to see more of that. But yeah, I mean,
so like no Christmas market, nothing like
not the candles.
Yeah.
And I did get the candles for the window.
Yeah.
Which is cute, but
yeah, it's very like traditional to have it.
Yeah. Which actually is nice, because I think the story is, it used to, when houses were far apart, they would put those in the window to signal, like there's someone else out there, kind of. And also, I mean, it's a tool for basic navigation, I guess. But
to whom did you send the signal that you still alive?
I guess my neighbors and the greater population of Teknikringen. So.
But I guess nobody went home, right? Because of the lockdown, or?
Actually, a lot of people went home.
Oh, really?
We had a considerable Christmas
like
break.
Of your friends or community?
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of students as well. The campus got really quiet for sure. I stayed with a small group of kind of my friends and one of my roommates. And so we did a small Christmas dinner, but the rest of campus was very quiet. I was the only person in the study buildings some days. So that was interesting, but I used it as a time to recharge. I called home a lot and really reconnected with kind of friends and family.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was different, but I came out of it feeling so rested. And a lot of my friends came back from trips home that were amazing, but needing a vacation from the vacation. I understand,
like just to recharge and.
Yeah.
But I thought like nobody went home. Everybody stayed, and because of the COVID, and like there were no flights and so on.
No, I mean, a lot of people still managed to do it. I don't really know. I mean.
So how was your Christmas?
It was low key. I hosted a small dinner at my house, and it was sort of a potluck of a bunch of our different Christmas cultures put together, but really, really quiet. We got our first snowfall, well, it wasn't the first, but on Christmas Eve, we got a beautiful layer of snow. So that really made it feel special. But yeah, That's
amazing. Yeah. But you also managed to travel inside Sweden, like to different cities or regions.
Yeah. So actually in November, before all of that, I went up to Lapland with my friends. We took 2 cars and we drove the, 15 hours from Stockholm up to like Kiruna and Urbanistica. And then we stayed in Riksgränsen, which literally that town translates to the national border, because it's the last town on the highway before you reach Norway. And that border was closed due to COVID, but we had an amazing trip up there. I mean, we saw the Northern Lights. We had reindeer crossing the road in front of us. Ice skated on the lakes. We took some incredible winter hikes. Like we really had that kind of full Northern experience in a way, a lot of sauna time, and I guess we were all still studying. So in the morning it was unique because we woke up and there was very limited daylight hours, but we would study in the kitchen with this beautiful panoramic view of, the mountains. And it was amazing.
So you really experienced the beauty of Swedish nature.
Definitely.
That's awesome. What's the absolutely most beautiful thing that you saw or experienced?
I think we were doing a hike near Abisko, and we were hiking through maybe like up to your knee in snow. It was very, very snowy, and we were following the trail markers, and we got where we thought we were approaching the summit, and we were actually approaching the kind of low cloud layer, and we get to that, and then we see the actual peak. And by the time we got up to the real peak and looked down, it looked like we were in heaven or something, because you couldn't see the bottom. It was this mountain covered in snow with this amazing sunset in the background, and it just descended into like a cloudy lake. it was surreal, really. We
Wow.
watched the sunset and the moonrise. It was unbelievable. And
Yeah.
then we sledded and we were all in snow pants, and we ran and then slid down the mountain on the way home. I felt like something out of the Grinch, like coming down Mount Crumpet or something. It was amazing.
How was the driving there? Was it like easy? You could navigate, or was it like a bit of difficulties?
It's really easy to get there. We had basic GPS. They have highways. It was more or less simple. The conditions were pretty good. We only had one part of the journey that was a little snowy, but very basic.
You drive?
Yep.
Nice. So you have like your driving lessons from US and cool. In the previous episode, we talked a lot about building a relationship, a friendship with Swedes. So how did it go?
I mean,
how many friends do you have now?
Well, it's been amazing. I've definitely gotten closer with some of my classmates, and I have one friend, he's Swedish, and it's been really great. He's been very patient in my efforts to learn Swedish as well. So he's kind of my main point of contact within my master's, but I also recently joined a Swedish women's soccer team.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks. It's a regional team, and women, my age more or less, and it's a great level of play. But the most important thing is actually that it's all in Swedish. So that's been an amazing setting for me to really hear a lot of Swedish, get to know the girls, but also practice a set of vocabulary. So that's been really amazing for both getting to know them and learning Swedish.
That's amazing. Can you tell us some of the words that you used during?
Yeah. It's a lot of directional words. So left, right, vänster, höger.
Okay.
It's, when you want to pass a through ball, mellan, which means between.
In between, yeah.
Yeah, kind of through, equivalent in English. You have basic numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Cool.
You have to learn those because often they're explaining instructions. Colors has also been really helpful. So red and blue.
So what's the name of the team?
Lindhagen FF.
Okay.
But yeah, so really basic. Hem, pass back, like means home. So just these random little words that
hashtags.
Yeah, right. So that's been amazing. And then, just getting to hear those types of instructions. But the cool thing about soccer is I grew up playing soccer. It's my favorite sport by a long shot. And I never thought I would get to play on a team again, 11v11, at this scale and practice. And so it's been really cool, to do that, but also kind of use it as a cultural, connection. And it's, something that really transcends language. So even though I don't always understand the full instructions, I can obviously observe. And I also am quite familiar with some of the things we do already because I've done them before, which, makes me really sentimental because soccer is such a universal language all in its own. So it's been, the opportunity of a lifetime.
Do they treat you like, okay, she doesn't know anything, she's just here, she don't understand anything? Or how do they interact with me? They're amazing. They've been so welcoming of me and, not condescending at all. I mean, things are in Swedish, and I have made it clear that I'm learning Swedish. I'm intending to do that. But, when they can tell I'm confused, oftentimes a teammate will just, kind of summarize for me, or I can ask them. The coaches are very considerate and very kind as well. So, sometimes they have to explain, sometimes they don't, which are those proud moments when I'm like, oh, I got this one. But on the whole, that's amazing. I like to think I haven't been too much of a hindrance. It doesn't seem. But you also you're taking a Swedish course, right?
So there is an online Swedish course through the Swedish national website called Learning Swedish. And they have modules that you can self-study. And so a friend of mine who also studies at KTH, we are doing it together. Okay. And so we've been having, outside of the actual course that we're working through, we do like a word of the day. Yeah. So that's been fun. So how is it going now with the Swedish? Like, is there a specific level that you can say I would say I'm still pretty basic. I'm in this phase of really putting together vocabulary and understanding those connecting words in language. So your prepositions, your pronouns, the basic, interrogative pronouns, I think, who, what, when, where, why, understanding those and being able to pick those out in sentences, and then understand, common phrases, the things people say, exact, absolutes, these common refrains or whatever. I'm still gathering a lot, but what's been great about learning at this point is I've been seeing Swedish everywhere. And so now that I'm learning what those correspond to in sound is really key. So I think in the coming months, a lot is going to click for me, but I wouldn't say I'm, amazingly conversational by any means, but I'm definitely way more aware.
So like maybe after the summer, are we going to record in Swedish?
That would be incredible, but I'm not going to make any promises just yet.
So tell me more about your studies now. Like, how is it going with the courses? Which courses you attended?
Yep. So I am currently in 2 courses. One is urban economics and the other is sustainable transportation development. It's a long title. That's sort of the gist of it, but and that's been great because I've definitely found myself interested in, and as a result, selecting classes that focus on transport and mobility. So that is great because I'm leading up to ultimately doing my thesis within that realm. So I'm really enjoying that, but it's going well. Awesome.
So what can you explain more to us? What are these courses about, or what kind of project you work with?
Yeah. So the urban economics course has been kind of widespread, but sort of the underlying theme has been really analyzing capitalism in relation to sustainable development and sort of asking ourselves if this is the right path forward, because the way that the dominant system works is that it's an exchange economy. It's not focused on kind of a greater good. It's focused on profit, not people. That is the goal of capitalism, and so it relies on certain inequalities to thrive, and it also relies on a constant flow of production, which isn't something that is sustainable on a variety of fronts if we want to have a better world in coming decades. So that's been a bit more theoretical at points, but still I think very provocative. And we've gotten to read amazing sort of historical economics literature about everything from like where it crosses paths with feminism to, I mean, it's been wide reaching for sure, but really very thought provoking.
What was the final project? What did you have like a?
We haven't had it yet.
Okay.
But anyway, the other course though is probably my favorite. And we recently, like for example, had an assignment calculating the impacts of long distance travel. So, I mean, transport itself usually accounts for anywhere from a quarter to a third of a country's carbon emissions. And so it's a big area to reduce its impact. And one of the parts that isn't included in that part of the budget is emissions from international flights. So that when we say that quarter or that third, it doesn't include like air at all.
But this is in Sweden or like internationally?
So this in Sweden, it's actually a third because Sweden has lower emissions in other sectors like buildings and efficiency in that sense. So it looks like more in Sweden because they're just better. But in other countries, it's usually around a quarter, like in the US. And so what is concerning is that with air not being in that, I mean, emissions from air travel are almost that exact amount. Like in Sweden, actually, example, that's only in Sweden. There's 10 million tons of CO2 equivalents kind of due to transport and another 10 essentially from international travel. So the reason is the point is that it's very important. And so we got to do this assignment going, what would a realistic image of 2040 look like for us to be able to reach the 2050 Paris climate targets? And so we had to go back and, quantify where we are now and look at, kind of if that path is going to get us to 2050, where do we need to be at that point? What do those levels look like? And so that was really thought provoking because then we also had to propose the policies and like major changes that would have to occur, shifting to rail, reducing car or shifting car to electric, like EVs and hybrids. So it was really quite a high level and kind of all encompassing, but still really cool to get into the details of that.
Yeah. How do you gather data? Is there any data available?
So we got to choose the country we worked with. I selected Sweden, and that's really advantageous because they have an amazing system of statistics and facts. It's like called Statistics Sweden. I mean, they have a lot of this information available to the public, and so that helps. But also a lot of looking at other research. But it was very tricky because a lot of times they would put things in terms. Someone's goal is to reduce emissions by 70% of 1990 levels, and then someone else is looking at a 50% reduction of these levels, and they don't always correspond. So kind of different metrics, but very.
So in like from what you did in this project, what do we need to do if we want to achieve really like the 2040 goal?
Yeah. So other than better improving rail, so increasing the amount of rail and reducing car use, a huge part of it is not flying. Like essentially my image of 2040 in Sweden had already phased out domestic flights, and it banked on a assumption that the technology for flights operating on biofuels and also maybe even electric were in operation, and only kind of in areas where it was absolutely necessary. So a lot of routes to the north where they have huge kilometers to cover. But in addition to that, it involved a reduction in international air travel as well, which, I mean, you can see why this is a really tricky thing to work with, because, you don't want to argue for a slowdown of that, but in some ways we can't keep up this level of travel and moving around. And also, I mean, looking at, Europe alone, a lot of these trips can be made with other modes, but also, and I think one thing that the pandemic has been really good for is making us realize that we have technologies that can replace travel. And so,
like the unnecessary travel.
Exactly. And so actually reducing business travel is a huge,
I can imagine,
like portion of that. It's about a quarter, I think. So, doing that is really important as well to just, lower.
Do you believe that like in the coming 10 years that the technology that we will have more environmental friendly airplanes, or do you see any vibes of we're getting there?
Honestly, I think 10 years is way too early, and I'm not an expert in this. I mean, there's plenty
like from your point of view.
I would say no. And I mean, also what it comes down to is, yes, technology is a lever we can use, but reducing demand is also the ultimately most important lever that we have. And I don't know, there's also talk of kind of different policies where you can have, scaled taxation so that you're not penalizing, the people who have a once in a lifetime opportunity to travel and then, can't do it because the cost is too high. Like frequent flyers, that kind of segment needs to change as well, so that, when you talk about the social impacts, it's, the burden, it can maybe be distributed a little more fairly. But I really don't know if the technology is going to get us there in time at this rate.
Exactly.
And I think biofuels are going to get there before, any electric planes start flying around. But I'm sure there's people somewhere racing to try to get to that.
You don't think Elon Musk will do something?
That's exactly what I was thinking of, actually. Who knows? He's probably going to make a, teleportation device before he goes for an electric plane or something. But if he made an electric plane, that would be awesome.
Because now when you speak is like a big difference from our first episode, because now when you speak, you're like more passionate about transportation within urban planning. So how did you find that this is my passion, or this is what I would love to continue with? Was it like, is there any specific moment or no, it's just like?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So there's, 3 sectors you usually work with: energy, transport, and land use. And so I often found myself picking these, transport related, prompts or assignments, or choosing to work with some kind of transport project. I also, in understanding its impact in the scheme of our total carbon emissions, I also realized it's an area that does need a lot of attention and fast. And it's something that we really can influence as individuals. I mean, those are our choices that, end up becoming part of the demand for travel. I mean, it's how you choose to get to work. It's how you choose to go on vacation. It's choice, really. And so I think as a person, I just found that really compelling. And, I love going places. I love doing things. But I mean, in this city, my environment here encourages me to get on my bike and go. And sometimes I take transport, but I'm living here without a car and I haven't missed it at all, and I think it's a shift in culture, but it also needs to be accompanied by a shift in the environment that's, the built environment that surrounds us, and ultimately, high level policies and changing, what is available. So I'm building more rail, which go Biden for, proposing these ambitious investments in our infrastructure like that in the US. But I mean, it's cool to be in Sweden where they're already kind of light years ahead of that.
Yeah, compared to US. So do you think that because you're biking a lot, do you think it's affected the kind of courses you choose, or no, not really in that sense?
Not exactly. I think I understand it more just because I do it every day. But I also just find it to be something that is really available to everyone. I mean, it's a relatively small investment to get a bike, and it saves you a lot in the long run. So I think there's also a really good social justification for it. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't expect to wind up so focused on transport, but then when I step back and think about it, it feels right. I'm a mover at the end of the day, to be honest. So it's fun to deal with something that has that same fundamental essence.
How was the atmosphere in KTH in general? Like the lecturing, studying from home, the digital versus ERL?
Yeah, I mean, I think all universities have had, everyone everywhere has had the challenge of adapting to the pandemic and the restrictions that have gone along with it. So, I mean, KTH, I think, has done their best, but it definitely is different learning in a remote environment. I'm really grateful for having, classmates that we can kind of vent about it at times, because it is a really different way. I miss the interaction with professors. We're not in the classroom at all here. And luckily we can still meet with group mates if they also are willing to meet on campus, and campus is open, which is also a luxury. But it's pushing me to be even more, disciplined as a student, because you don't have that accountability of sitting in class in your seat and looking at the professor. This anonymity of a screen is a double-edged sword for sure. And I also really miss for group, when you have to meet in a group in person, it's very different than on Zoom when they put us in breakout rooms or something. I miss normal culture, because the Zoom culture for groups it amazes me or kind of baffles me, because people don't, it's like the normal social rules don't apply. They'll just stare at you sometimes and you're like, hello, like, we are still, pretend there's not a screen here. What you're doing is weird, so it's like sometimes strange to realize we're living in this reality, but that's not everyone. And I just think, people have varying levels of, comfort when it comes to online learning and participating in this format. So
are you tired of doing it remotely?
I like what I'm learning, but I don't know. I miss regular learning for sure. It would be nice, but I'm really grateful to be able to study here at all right now. So
I understand. So how is the student life going? Like with other students, are you doing like some kind of events, activities together? How's the situation now?
There's not a ton of mingling, really encouraged through the university. A lot of the student life stuff isn't as big as usual. Also, like, kind of an interesting thing about KTH is it has a really strong, student life. I don't know how to describe it really. They're called chapters, but it's sort of like the equivalent of fraternities and sororities in the US, except they're co-ed and they're based on your area of study. And these chapters are really popular for bachelor students, not so much for master students, unless you were doing your bachelor's here as well. So, I observed that going on. I know like a few people involved in that, but it's not really the circle that I'm in. And so I know a lot of international master students and other, my cohort mates in my program. And that's sort of my circle. And it's a group of close friends. It's a group of friends that I go climbing with at the climbing gym. It's a group of friends that I do other sports with, soccer or running. But we kind of do our own thing, dinner parties, smaller gatherings. We haven't been reaching out a ton, which I think is just safer for everyone's general health.
Yeah, I understand. So like before we talk about the future, your plans for the summer internship and further, how is like, if you evaluate your previous 7-8 months, what will you say? Like, do you feel home now in Sweden?
Yeah. I mean, this really does I feel very settled here, which is amazing. And it still gives me thrills, like my bike ride to soccer practice, 2 days a week when I go there and I bike over the bridges and I go from, campus through Norrmalm, past part of Södermalm into Lillesing and then onto another island. I cross and I see the landscape and I see the sunset and I'm just in awe of the fact that this is my daily life and how much joy I find in just the ordinary things, So I really do. I love it here. I mean, I'm grateful for the people. From my roommate is amazing. My close friends are amazing here. I feel like I have a community, which I think is something that requires patience when you move somewhere because it doesn't happen right away. But slowly those pieces fall together. The family I nanny for, the soccer team, my cohort, and obviously my other friends. Like it's gratifying to be at this point. And I would say I could be doing better on Swedish if I'd started sooner. I think I would be much farther along. But there's a lot to acclimate to when you move countries, and I have to just give myself a little bit of grace to say, okay, I had some things to figure out first. And now that I'm pretty sure that I want to stay here, at least for a little while and work here for a few years after I graduate, I know I need to learn Swedish. And so that's been a huge motivating factor as well.
Sure. We would love to have you here in Sweden because I think you're a very great and innovative mind. So,
well, thank you.
So tell me, what is your plans for the summer or after the summer? You're looking for an internship, right?
I am. And I mean, this summer, I've been applying to things that like internships that actually are for the fall semester alongside studies, and some opportunities that are during the summer. But it's definitely unique to the US, where in the US, every summer during my studies, I had an internship and everyone I knew had some kind of internship. I mean, you busy yourself with work because that's what's normal and what's expected. And here, I mean, from the people I've talked to and, I've kind of networked a good bit as well and talked to some alum, and it's not as normal. I mean, work slows down for Swedish people in the summertime and people take most of July off.
Yeah.
And I mean, like people's bosses tell them, shift things on your schedule, move things kind of here and there, like make sure you take the time off, which is just so not usual in the US. I mean, you get 2 weeks a year to vacation, like summer is no exception. And so I've had to dial back my expectations because the opportunities that I'm used to looking for don't exactly look the same in the summer period.
It's another system, basically.
Entirely. So with that being said, I have some things in the works, but if none of those opportunities pan out, then what I'm going to do, and what I would still like to do, but might be a lot if I'm also doing those, is actually self-study an online course for GIS and then also keep working on my Swedish. And I mean, I also have life things that I want to do. I mean, I'm in Europe for the first summer. Yeah. It's really a unique experience. So I'm going to be having a little reunion with friends over midsummer here. I actually just recently booked a trip home, towards end of July to go visit home. I haven't been home, and by that time it will be just about a year. Wow. 2 weeks shy of a year. So I think it will be really beautiful to, reconnect with everyone back home and check in before I come back here for the next fall.
Yeah. So where would you like to have an internship, or like what would you like to work with? Is it also transportation? Is there any like a very niched area?
Yeah, so I am open to a lot of possibilities right now, but I'm definitely keeping my ears perked for there's like traffic consultancies, which I think could be really interesting. I also am looking at some just like larger consultancies as a whole, be they Sweco or Niras or, different kinds of official opportunities. I'm ultimately planning to do my thesis, or I'm hoping to do my thesis with a company, which can be a really great way to learn more while also maybe kind of getting a foot in the door at places that I would ultimately be interested in working for. So, yeah. And I mean, I've thought of everything from, kind of like an informal job shadowing as well, but like some things just don't exist in the same sense here. So it's been a good reality check, but yeah, I'm really any kind of learning experience related to mobility, transport oriented development, mobility as a service. I mean, all of those things are really interesting topics to me right now.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all the good luck. I think you need to, you started to like email and network, right? Because it's very important here.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge in Sweden. LinkedIn is very much a lifeline for your career here.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually I've been connected with some really, really great people. I've had several, kind of coffee chats, and each time I really do pick up, these nuggets of information that are moving me forward and helping me understand, the work culture here more. And it's been great to talk to alumni. It's been great to get a mentor. We actually have an official mentor through KTH. You could sign up for a mentorship program with a former alum. So I've had that as well. And so it's, I feel supported, but I mean, you definitely have to make the effort. And I think networking really gets a bad rap. And so I've really tried to embrace it as with just being authentic. And I've found that people here are really candid, which is refreshing, because I think part of what makes networking kind of scary in the US, especially in sort of the business sector, is it's very, there's a performative aspect to it. People are being, there's a different way of being.
Yeah.
So it's been nice to feel like I can do it here, but do it as really myself and genuinely just, learn throughout the process.
That's awesome. So Claire, thank you so much again for being here. I'm so happy to talk with you. I'm so happy to follow your story. And I think you're doing a really great job, both like within KTH, but also within the city of Stockholm.
Thank you.
Before you go back to your campus, I would love that we finish this great episode by you give us, the listeners, 3 takeaway messages, and then ask us one question.
Great. Yeah. I mean, I think the first takeaway I would give is that especially in the context of COVID, travel doesn't have to be super far away to be exotic and exciting and an adventure. And that's something that initially I felt disappointed about. I can't go beyond Sweden. I can't go to Europe. I'm here, but I've had amazing adventures just exploring this country, which for, any American, it's a country that, is quite small, not much bigger than, Michigan and maybe the surrounding state or two in the Midwest. It's a small area with a lot to offer. So I think, think about what's near you and go there if you can, and relish the fact that you're also not going to have as big of a footprint from traveling to the great things near you. For the second, I would say related to, learning Swedish, I feel that it's reminded me that, learning anything new does involve or kind of require immersing yourself in it, and in doing so, leaving your comfort zone. And I have found that to be really awkward sometimes, but really rewarding. And, it's great to feel or find something that can make you feel like you're growing in a time that, you can maybe feel a bit restricted. And I mean, third, networking doesn't have to be painful. I feel like I could preach this to the greater, professional world. Let's all just be genuine and, help each other do good things out here.
Yes, let's do it. Thank you so much. And your question to us.
Yeah, so I think my question for listeners is a bit more provocative for maybe listeners from the US or non-Swedish listeners in a way, because it's about biking. And my question is, what is your relationship like with your bike? Do you even have one? Do you use it much? Could you use it more? And if so, why not start? And I've been thinking about this a lot as I look forward to going home ultimately in the summer, where I'm going to go home and my family has cars, plural, and people there just don't take the same trip that would take 10 minutes by bike to run their groceries. They take a car, and it's completely accessible by bike, maybe a little less enjoyable without lack of bike paths or something. But I just think, no matter where you are though, it's kind of a why not thing. And it's a lot of, I don't know. I guess I would encourage people to think about it, because it's a benefit for you. It's active mobility, it's exercise. It feels great to get around and catch the sunset while on two wheels. And, ultimately it's also so much better for the planet. So think about your bike.
Yeah, that's awesome. And also I would love to end with some chat that I had with young Gail. He said that when you go to a doctor and you have a health problem, the doctor would tell you, you go and bike. The doctor never tell you, you go and drive car. So yeah, I see the point there. Thank you so much for being here, and I wish you all the good luck with your studies, projects, and with everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. You learned something new and also got inspired by the guest. Don't forget to share the episode on your social media and recommend it to people you think they are really interested in this topic. Thank you so much again for giving your valuable time to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif. Keep up the good work. Keep loving cities.